Now we're going to make a macrame covering for a Christmas bauble. You can see that I've done this one here in pink, but you've just got natural coloured string and we're going to cover this bauble here. So to begin, I take the string out of the packet and there's a little jump ring there as well. This is one long piece of string. I want to divide it into 16. So because 16 is a nice even number, instead of measuring out each piece, I can just divide it in half over and over again. And the final one gives me 16 pieces. Now I take my jump ring and I put all of these pieces on the jump ring with a lark's head knot. The lark's head knot's quite simple. I fold a piece in half, I put it under the ring, and then I put the tail through the loop that I've made. One. So I put the fold under the ring, pull it through, and put the tails through the loop. Pull it tight. So I'm going to do this all the way around. There, now I've got all 16 around my circle. So what I'm going to do next is a square knot on each set of 4. So I take my first 4. Now if you've never done a square knot before, watch closely. It's quite confusing when you first start, but if you just take it slowly, you'll get it in no time. So in macrame, I have 2 filler cords and 2 working cords. The filler cords are in the middle and you knot around them, and the working cords are on the outside and they tie the knots. So I separate out my 4 cords and I take the one on the right and I place it over the filler cords, and then I put it under the other working cord. Then I take the second working cord, the one on the left, and I lift up the filler cords and pop it under the filler cords, and then I come up through that loop I made. That's the first half of the knot. I tighten that up and move it up right close to the circle. The second part of the knot, I take the one on the right, I pop it under the working cords and over the working cord on the left. Then I take the working cord on the left and I just simply place it down, the end of it down, through the loop that I made on the right, and tighten it. Once you've done those 2 steps, you've created a square knot. So I'm going to do this all the way around on each grouping of 4. I'll show you again how to do the square knot. So I take my next grouping of 4, separate the 2 working cords out the side and leave the filler cords down in the center. Take the cord on the right, place it over the filler cords and under the other working cord, so over, under, and this one goes under the filler cords and comes up through that first loop that you made. That's the first step that I tighten up to the circle. Bring them down to start the second step. We go under the filler cords and over the other working cord. The working cord on the left, the end of it simply goes over and down through that loop that you've made. So they're the 2 steps. So go ahead and make a square knot in each group of 4 around your circle. So for the second round, instead of doing the knot directly underneath the knot above it, we're going to take 2 knots that are side by side, and we're going to take 2 cords from one of them and 2 cords from the other, and now we'll make the middle 2 our filler cords and these 2 our working cords. So I take the one on the right and I put it over the filler cords under the working cord. I take the working cord on the left and I put it under the filler cords and up through that little loop. And instead of tightening it all the way up, I leave just this little gap here because that'll help us move down the bauble to make some shapes. So I complete that knot by going under the filler cords, over the other working cord, and that working cord, the end down through the loop. I very carefully tighten that up so that just sits there like that. I'm going to do 3 knots in a row. Then I move around and take the 2 left over from that first knot and take 2 from the knot next to that. And so now we repeat this all the way around, doing 3 knots on each group of 4. And that is the first round completed. Now we do exactly the same for the second round. We take 2 knots and we take 2 cords from each side of 2 knots side by side. And now we treat these 2 as the filler cords and these 2 as the working cords. And tie 3 square knots. For the first one, it's important to think about these little shapes here. We want them to be similar to each other because that's what's going to create the pattern on your bauble. So just fiddle around with them a bit until you get those looking a similar size. And once you're happy with them, just finish the knot off to secure it. That's the beginning of your next round. So now we're going to do that all the way around again. So, well done if you got to here. That's a lot of knots. Now you should have a shape that looks a little bit like this. What we're going to do is place it over our bauble. So the tie of the bauble comes up through the jump ring. And spread your macrame evenly out over the bauble. Starting to look really good, isn't it? So now what we want to do is secure it at the bottom, so it looks like that. So to do that, we're going to use a wrap knot. It's a little bit fiddly around a bauble, but worth it because it looks great. So I tip the whole thing upside down and find the center. Then I take one of my pieces and fold it in half back to the top. I take another piece and start to wrap it around all of my string. Now this is quite fiddly, so maybe even get some help from someone to do this. Because you want to get it nice and snug to hold all of your knots in place. So now I'm happy with the positioning of that. I'm just going to keep wrapping it around to secure all my strings together. So once I've wrapped it around 3 or 4 times, I'm going to find that little folded string that I did at the start. There it is. And pop the end I've been wrapping through it. I hope you can see that there. Then the top of my fold, which is sitting up here, pull that. So that it can pull my wrapped string up inside the knot. There we go. So now I just get my scissors and I snip away the top of that. Careful not to cut all the other cords. And that's secured all my cords at the bottom. And there's your finished bauble. Doesn't it look fantastic? Great job. There's a lot of knots in that one. Merry Christmas.